welcome to this Friday's LinkedIn Live with our incredibly special guest, Kristen Knepper. Kristen, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this discussion.
I know, me too. So everyone, Kristen and I met on Monday and we prepared, and we have a whole list of notes and things to share. And I'm so excited to learn from Kristen. And just so you know, I will read Kristen's bio in a second, but I can vouch for Kristen as a coach because she actually has coached me during a very during a very spicy time in my life, which is not the topic of conversation today, but it is true. Yes, you're nodding because you remember. Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
So we're so happy that you're here with us. I'm actually calling in from New York City. Kristen, where are you based?
I am based just north of San Diego in Carlsbad, California.
Oh, fantastic. So we are across the U.S. Talking to you and each other today. And if you're here with us, we'd love to know where you're from. So if you can, just please pop where you're watching this video from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So what I'll do is Kristen, I'm going to read your bio really quickly, and then we'll get started with our discussion today. And the topic is ownership in turbulent waters, navigating your career in 2024's economy. So let me share a little bit about Kristen for everybody. So Kristen is a recovering attorney turned tech exec turned career and executive coach. She teaches women not just the basics of the job search and career advancement, but how understanding subconscious bias and choosing to show up to work outside of the hyper-masculine norm can bring women true success and joy in business, and a caveat and get them promoted too. That is awesome. That is so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really enjoy what I do. I feel like I'm really lucky to do it.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I feel the same way. That's part of the description of this today was like executive coach and career coach are going to talk together to know about what's going on.
Exactly. Yes. And I want to talk about wellness too, which we prepped on Monday, because I think that's a big component about if we feel good about our career and our life and in general.
Yeah, I think our gut is a very good barometer, and I think a lot of times we don't listen to it.
Yes, amen. Yeah.
We talk about this too. All right, well, let's kick it off. So, Kristen, probably kind of a broad question, but why do people feel discontented and undervalued in their career in this current economy?
Yeah, it's bad. There's this line that keeps coming to mind. It's like, oh yeah, it's bad, eh? And I can't remember like what comedian, if it was like on Medea or if it was Jeff Foxworthy, but that's the phrase that just keeps coming up. And it's funny, the topic for this conversation, I had a client a few weeks ago and he just stopped our conversation kind of midstream and he paused and said, is anybody happy in their work? And I thought about it for a second and I'm like, no, not really. Like I have a couple of people that are new to a job and they're in the honeymoon phase, but they're not. And so what has happened, and if anybody has watched the news within the last few months, they see what's happening. There are massive layoffs. They, will cut 20,000 workers. And then we see, just a month or two later that there are stock buybacks and the C-suite is benefiting. And there is just like this real tone deafness, I think, to what is happening right now. And so one of the tricks I like to say, but I just want to set the stage for everybody to let them understand the 7,000 foot overview. So there is corporate law that says that a corporation has a fiduciary duty to their shareholders. So that means they're supposed to make as much money as possible. But nowhere in the law does it say, and you have to sacrifice your employees to do this. And in fact, this shift actually came right around 1980. There was an economist out of the University of Chicago named Milton Friedman. And I won't bore people with this lecture too long, but I just want you to understand kind of like what the vibe is. And he had this philosophy that there was corporate welfare going on, that the 40 years and a gold watch and a pension, that was too much, that didn't incentivize people. It didn't push them to do their best work. And Jack Welch, if people remember him, of GE, like really took that to heart, made a lot of money, and a lot of other companies followed suit. But what we lose in that, and now it's just kind of gone 180, like we don't have any security as employees. People are showing up to work in a state of great anxiety and great fear rather than they're bringing their best creative self to the table. And there's just a real palpitation is the word I want to use in this moment, because there's exhaustion, there's burnout, there's fear of taking a vacation or not being online at 7 p.m. And it's really impacting the happiness of everyone involved, except maybe the C-suite. But I think that's right around the corner.
Oh, you think they might getting
well, if our plans today come to
more.
fruition, because
Okay.
people can't, people,
Yeah.
but yeah, because we have some solutioning to do.
Yeah.
But, like you can't, any situation, and it just, how long it takes depends on us, right? But any situation where you have this attitude of let them eat cake, and that's what it is right now, is going to end in a French Revolution situation. Like, hopefully there's not violence, but there will be backlash. And so we've already seen at Salesforce, for example, Mark Benioff, they had massive layoff, and then he said, oh, we did too much. Like, can you come back? Well, that depends on us. Like, do we want to come back to an environment such as that? Do we have other options? And that hopefully is a big part of our discussion.
Okay, so you set this incredible scene for what's happening, right, in terms of companies. And who is it mostly affecting? Because we know it's not generally affecting the C-suite, at least right now.
No, it's not. So let's kind of break this down in 3 groups, and then I have like an asterisk at the end. So obviously the people that get laid off, right? It's very traumatic. I have been laid off. I know you've been laid off. It is not personal, but it absolutely feels personal. So for me to sit here and say, oh, it's not personal, like that doesn't matter, because the impact that it has on your body and how you feel, the financial implications, it impacts your healthcare in the US. There are just all kinds of layers to this. And even when you go back to work, I've had employees in the past, and myself included, that you have this trauma response to things like, oh, I made a mistake. Am I going to get fired? That's your constant dialogue in the back of your head. So it absolutely impacts those laid off, and it's going to depend what type of severance package they get and what happens in the grand scheme of things as to whether or not their skills are transferable, or whether or not they want to go back to what they were doing previously, especially considering how they were treated. The other group that I think we sometimes lose track of is, or actually two, the people who remain. So if I'm sitting here, and this has happened to me, and a third of my workforce is cut. So like Derek, who was my buddy, is no longer here, and his whole team and workload falls in my lap. That is traumatic. I'm going to have survivor's guilt. My workload is going to be dramatically impacted. I also have this added fear of, am I next? Is my head on the chopping block as well? Scared to take my vacation. Not quite sure, what to do with the whole situation. And then there's burnout and despair and high anxiety there. And then finally, we have kind of the people in the middle, the leaders. So you're leading a team. You have these directives coming down from the C-suite. My guess is your goals haven't changed. Your compensation hasn't changed, despite the fact that you're leading more people, you're doing more, and you're trying to manage the fear that's coming from the employees that you're attempting to manage. You have confidentiality that you're not sure how much to share with them. And then you have the mandates up here, and you're not sure whether or not to say that the king is actually naked. What is that going to do to your own career if you're brutally honest? And, I think this is the moment to step up and be brutally honest, but I know that it is, very charged to do that. The thing with everybody that we're talking about is when we get into this state where we're running on fumes, a constant state of anxiety. And that is what I'm seeing now. I've written more letters to HR. I've comforted more people in tears. I have more people that are afraid to go to the gym, and their, health has been dramatically impacted by that. And what happens, and I want to say this really, really loud for the people in the back, your prefrontal cortex starts to shut down, and you're not creative. You're not solving problems. You're not doing the best work, which is why the C-suite is going to care about this in about 20 minutes. And you're running, I'm pointing to the back of my head, but you're running based on fight or flight, your amygdala. The other thing that happens here is that when we are running on our amygdala, we are not making the best decisions. And what I mean by that is we're relying on bias, and we're relying on stereotypes. So the people that are impacted the most are people from any marginalized group. So Black people, Indigenous people, Latinx people, basically anybody who's not white, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, and women. And so we need to make sure that we are thinking before we're speaking. We're bringing our best selves in that regard, because people who are already burdened are going to be burdened even more so. And if you mix any of those identities and you have, 2 or 3, it becomes worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
Wow. What I'm hearing is that when people get laid off from work, everybody has more work.
Yeah.
In
and
some
not
way.
More compensation usually, like very rare occasion. Yeah.
Right. And so the people being laid off have to deal with their own with their own things and trauma and figuring out what's next, and that burden. people who remain all of a sudden have more work to do, and now they have a fear. And then
Yeah.
the leaders are kind of weirdly sandwiched in the middle from the directives that they need to complete that aren't changing, but they can't really complete them because they don't have enough people to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, so now all of a sudden, and it feels like it's like, I'm not really like someone who understands the stars, but it feels like a star that's about to blow up.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence French Revolution. Like this is gonna, like, there's gonna be a guillotine that goes down soon, you know, like, and I think we need to navigate that, and we need to start solutioning and having some real conversations. And I want this to be a moment where things shift, where we don't come back here in 10 years. I don't want this to be secular, where it's like, oh, well, the economy's bad again, and the housing market is this again, or whatever. We need to start learning from our mistakes, and we need to do better.
I think that's a quote right there that we should all take to heart.
We
need to start learning from our mistakes and do better.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of us. All right. Well, I just want to say, and I'm watching the LinkedIn Live here in a separate video, and we have 41 people with us right now watching. So if you're watching, thank you for being here with us. And Kristen, you met a lot of different emotions, about fear, and you mentioned having to deal with kind of neglect of self, a lot of trauma, the feeling of being lost and hopeless. And so I actually like to ask folks in the chat if you've ever experienced one of these emotions at work. We're not saying it has to be now. You don't have to tell us if it's now.
Of course not now. No.
Right. But just, if you could, just let us know if you've experienced any of these emotions at work. You can just type in, yes, I've experienced them, or something like that in the chat. And since we're a little delayed, we'll keep talking and come back to see what people have said about if they've ever felt this way in a work environment. And I have a feeling a lot of people will say yes, because I know I have.
I definitely have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And twice on Sunday.
Right. Well, we've talked a lot about kind of setting the stage and the scenario and what people are feeling, but are there any solutions? Can we share any solutions for?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of solutions. And I think kind of the overarching umbrella of this part of the discussion is there is power in numbers, right? So for anybody who's hearing this and they're, suffering in silence, reach out to friends, reach out to, former colleagues or people in your network, whoever it is. It's so easy to kind of like go to this, dark, I'm thinking of like the cloak in Harry Potter of like one of the evil characters, but like, and just kind of, isolate yourself and put yourself in this bubble. But it is going to get better. I think it's Brene Brown that says, shame cannot survive when we speak it. It might not be shame that you're feeling, but any emotion, I don't think, can survive when you speak it, right? So anxiety, burnout, defeat, hopelessness, whatever it happens to be, say it out loud to somebody that you love or somebody that, you care about, and it's going to start to get better from there. So that's the first thing. So let's take the groups we talked about, kind of the leadership, and then people who remain and people who have suffered layoffs, kind of one step at a time. And there is a lot of overlap, but let's start with the leaders, because that's a real precarious job, right? Like you really need to say that the king is naked, but then you also have to be comforting your team. And so I think a couple of different things that can really, really help if you are a leader. First of all, be as candidly honest as you can. Be truthful. Obviously, you can't, breach any confidentiality. So if there's something you're like, I can't discuss that with you yet, just be honest about that piece of it. But allowing people to feel their feelings, be vulnerable with them, and just say, this scared me too, at whatever it happens to be. And I think the other thing, when we're in a situation such as this, when there is so much fear and so much anxiety and so much burnout, you have to brutally tell people to go home, to log off, to take their vacation. There is not a problem that can be solved from the same state that it was created. I think it was Albert Einstein that said that. And I used to tell my team all the time, there'd be something that someone was trying to solve. I'm like, you need to log off and go take a shower, or go for a run, or go to yoga, or watch Game of Thrones. I don't care. Whatever it is that you do to get to a place that is happy and calm and what have you, you need to be doing that. So as a leader, you need to tell your team to go do that. And you need to cover for them if somebody's like, where is Sally? Like, why isn't she at her desk, or whatever it happens to be? And really be brutal about them taking their vacation. You need to take your vacation very, very loudly. Make sure everybody has ample time for self-care, and to really care for their health, because this, like the anxiety and the constant stress, we know that it's only a matter of time before that impacts the body and the body starts to break down as a result of that. So simultaneously, while you're doing that with your team, you have to be really honest with leadership about what's going on. Hey, Derek's no longer here. Sally has taken over that. This is outside the scope of her contract, and she hasn't been compensated for it. When are we going to have a discussion about compensating Sally and getting her a new contract that discusses all of the duties that she's doing now? And maybe that's not something people can do, or leaders feel like they can do the second layoffs occur. But if this is a new norm, then we need to have, new safety nets in place with regard to that. And I know it can be very uncomfortable to push back. I've seen great leaders, or I've also seen bad leaders, that when this happens, they're concerned about self rather than concerned about team. And so be introspective, see your therapist, take care of yourself, like make sure that you are okay, and put the, oxygen mask on yourself so that you can take care of others, and have the brutally honest conversations that you need to with vulnerability. And one of the things that I most recommend, and I'll stop babbling in a second, is anytime somebody, you feel triggered, or you feel like, what's happening? Like, why isn't this person here? Ask them how they are and what is going on. Is everything okay if they show up for a meeting, rather than like, you're 20 minutes late again? Like, that's not going to get you anywhere. That's just going to shut the other person down. But opening up so they can say, my husband's sick, or my kid is having behavioral issues, or whatever it happens to be, that's going to begin a dialogue where you can actually solution problems. So that's the first one. For the people that remain.
And Kristen, just if I could, because we've got some interesting comments going on in the chat really quickly. And I think I heard, just to summarize, what you're suggesting for leaders is to set an example.
Absolutely.
Treat yourself well, take your own vacation, take it loudly, but then you're having candid conversation both ways with leadership and with the people on your team.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. All right. I think those are great solutions. And I'm just going to check out the chat to see what people are saying. Yeah, because look, we have a lot of stuff going on here. So let's see. We have some folks calling in from all over, and we do have a couple of folks saying that yes, they have actually experienced these emotions at work. And Lisa actually says, and we can see her on the screen now, the cycle you just described is the reason why she decided to retire.
I get that. I mean, yeah, I totally understand that. I totally understand why somebody would want to check out of corporate America. I had a friend who, she went from being a very, very big wig to now teaching at community college. And I 100% understand why she decided to do that.
Between that choice. And Lisa, thank you for sharing that. And I also see Kristen mentioned that one of her colleagues, coworkers passed away, and the company didn't give anybody off to go to the memorial service, which is very, very sad. Kristen, that's so sad. I'm sorry that happened to your husband.
Yeah.
Goodness
I've seen
gracious.
a lot of bad behavior. I mentioned, like, I spent more time this last fall writing letters, helping clients write letters to HR than I ever have in my career. I've been a hiring manager since 1998, and I've been coaching since 2016. And this is just through the looking glass. I even had a prospective client who they had, massive layoffs. And then the CEO came to an all hands like a day or two later and said, you just need to get over it. And there was no even explaining, like, here's the backstory. Here's why we decided that we needed to do this. It was just a reprimand for everybody who remained.
Oh, there's no context or no discussion or no sharing of why the choice was made. But because I think that I always assume layoffs are a very tough choice.
I do too. But unless you say that quiet part out loud, people don't know that. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, again, thank you to everybody who's joining us. We've now got 45 people with us.
Yay, welcome,
watching
everyone.
on LinkedIn. So thanks, everybody. By the way, we have a couple more things on our agenda, but if you have any questions for Kristen, please plop them in the chat and we'll see them. We've got the incredible Kristen Spencer producing for us behind the scenes. So she and I will see the questions and we'll make sure to bring them to the forefront. Okay, so Kristen, so we're talking about solutions, and we already talked about the solutions for leaders, but now we have to talk about for individual contributors, the people who remain and the people who got laid off.
So I think that this is the next point I want to make is a really important one. And I want to share my personal story. So it was way back, it was about 11 years ago now. There were mass layoffs at my company. And they were always laying people off like every 2 years systematically to keep their numbers in the black. It had never impacted my department. And then it did. And it was like a sucker punch to the gut. And I remember sitting on my bed later in the day when it happened, like having talked with several colleagues and just feeling sad and shocked and in just this like alternate state. And I remember this voice in my head. It said, "You have 2 years." And I took heat, because there have been times in my career where I have not listened to my intuition. And almost 2 years to the day, I got laid off. And so I share that to say, if there is anything that you're like, this is not a safe place for me, I think I'm next, or I need to leave, this division and try to get myself to another division, never ignore that voice, right? Like, always make sure that you are listening. Humans are the only animal that will ignore their intuition and try to out-logic it. And you cannot out-logic that piece of yourself. So don't even try. So if you remain, make sure that you're listening to yourself. You know, who knows what they're going to do next, but a few things that you can do. You should be getting compensated for the work that you're doing now, not the work you did prior to the layoffs. So if, someone comes to you and they say, "Anne, we had to let Derek go, and so you're going to be managing this project now." One of the things that you can do is say, "I am happy to help. That sounds great. I've always been a team player. That is outside the scope of my original contract. I would love to talk to you about what that new contract and compensation would look like." And so you want to protect yourself in this moment. And if you haven't done this and layoffs happened a few months ago, the perfect opportunity to say, "Hey, we've had a couple months with this new norm. I have picked up these additional responsibilities. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to renegotiate my contract and compensation." If you have a leader who is not one that we talked about, the one who is in tuned and managing the team and gets kerfluffled or refuses to have the conversation, the follow-up question is, when could we negotiate that? If now is a bad time, at the end of the quarter or in a month, like whatever it is. And if you don't get a response, my recommendation would be to send a note to HR, and not that they need to do anything. You can put that, in the forefront, like, "Hey, Anne, I just wanted to let you know I had a conversation with my manager. I've been doing a lot of duties since the layoffs that are outside of the scope of my responsibility. And I would like, to eventually get to a point where we can renegotiate my contract and compensation. I'm always going to be a team player, and I'm happy to step up. There's no action that is needed." And make sure you say there's no action that's needed. But I just wanted, to make sure that there was a record of this. And then I want you to also send that to a Dropbox, your personal email, so there's a date and timestamp on that in case you ever need that. I hope you do not, but it's really good to take care of yourself first. The other thing that you need to do, if you're one of the people who has remained, you need to make sure you are setting very firm boundaries. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier, make sure you take your vacation. I know you're probably scared to at this point, but make sure that you are taking advantage of all the benefits that are available to you, and make sure you're saving. Make sure that you are understanding what it is that you do, the value you bring to this organization. You're writing down all of your accomplishments. If you get positive feedback from a client or a colleague, make sure to save that, send that to the same Dropbox. But you want to prepare yourself for whatever is next. And what's next might be that the company gets it together and you stay there for the next 20 years. But it's also likely that that is not going to be the case. So set yourself up by investing in yourself. So vacation, like take care of your health, and also start seeing, if you're not sure what you might want to do next, or you feel like your skill set is very much in a box and you're not sure how it would translate, while you are working and while you have the funds, make sure that you are investing in a coach, investing in a therapist, like, do all the things that you need to do to get ready for the next steps. If you're looking at entrepreneurship, make sure that you're joining groups, make sure that you're taking advantage of resources that are out there so that you're prepping for the future.
You mentioned a whole stream, and I hope everyone rewatches the recording to get everything. If you're not taking notes, that everything that Kristen just suggested. And the two things that stood out to me was, you need to have an emergency fund. That's like financial basics 101. And I think I'm not going to curse on this live, even though I could. It's like an FU fund, where like you just can't take it anymore, or you want some time to figure out what you want to do, and you want to know that if something does happen to you in terms of getting laid off, that you have a runway and time to find something new. So I think that's very good advice, because I think I saw statistics that said, like, I think it's like 50% of Americans don't have any sort of emergency fund at all.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is going to be one of the weirdest things I've ever said, but if you could not don't rage quit, get yourself fired instead, because that way you get unemployment. Okay. Because if you quit, you don't have that benefit, but if they let you go, you will have that benefit.
I feel like we might need to do another live on that. Just that topic. Oh my goodness.
How to get yourself fired. Don't try to do that either. But like if you know that the end is near, let it play out, because there's probably a good chance that you're going to get severance or at the very least unemployment, unless you're, Bruce Wayne and you have all this money that your family left you. So.
Okay. All right. Duly noted, folks. And if you have questions about that, contact Kristen. We'll give you Kristen's contact information at the end of the live, so you can talk to her a little bit more about strategies for that. So you mentioned having an emergency fund, and then you also mentioned something really important, is having a coach.
Yeah.
And not just having a coach when you need a coach, having a coach before you need a coach.
Preemptively. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. That was I had a coach when I got laid off, and I had a group of friends that I could call on. I remember the day I was laid off, like I was able to call former colleagues, call friends. One of my friends was like, well, we're going to go get drinks. Like, what time can you be ready? Just make sure that you have people in your corner who understand the situation and are going to back you up. So, in that, like, I love my mother, but she was not the person to call that day, right? Because she would have panicked with me, like, oh my God, what are you going to do? You don't have a job. Like, how are you going to pay your mortgage? I can do that by myself. Like, that's not the person to call. Make sure you are calling people who are going to step up and be supported. My girlfriend Latchme, I remember when I called her, she's like, congratulations, because you haven't, been super happy in that job for a while. And this is an opportunity to, do something new. So make sure you call whoever is your own Latchme in your world. Got it.
If that happens to you, call people who can support you.
Yeah.
And will understand and can lift your spirits.
Exactly.
And help you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but we haven't talked about solutions for the people who have gotten laid off. So can we do that very quickly, and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah. So I don't mean for this to be all doom and gloom, but the economy is tough. So it might be a minute before you get another job. And one of the nice things about this moment is you have the opportunity to reinvent yourself if that's something that you want to do. And so I'll just share another story from my own life. I knew that I wanted to do some type of coaching, some type of facilitation after I got laid off. And I was super interested when I went to law school in civil rights, but I didn't want to go back to practice law. So I wanted to transition into DEI. And because I didn't have the experience, nobody would hire me. And so what I did was I put out my own shingle and opened my own consultancy, where I did leadership training and I did subconscious bias training and facilitated those types of conversations. So I think it was Oprah. She's like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And a while after that, I had a friend who was a writer at Universal Studios. He knew what I was doing. He introduced me to the DEI team. I talked to them in July of 2017. October of 2017. Do we all remember what happened? Harvey Weinstein. That happened. And so Hollywood, was a buzz about that. And I had a lot of work coming my way because I had set myself up right. I was working, but I wasn't working like I was working the fall of 2017. So always bet on yourself. I mean, don't let people share their view of your limitations with you, because let me tell you, they are wrong. If you have made it this far, then you can make it much, much, much further. Always bet on you. If you can't find a corporate job, there's always going to be an opportunity to hang out your own shingle. It can be scary. You might need a runway, but I think that that's always the best bet, is to bet on you.
I love that advice, bet on you. And I would say also, because Kristen and I are both coaches, so many of your skills are transferable. I see this all the time. I believe that most people don't know how awesome they actually are. And sometimes talking to a friend or a coach can really help you realize that. But you have to internalize it for other people to see that as well. Like, you have to know it to be able to communicate it. And then the other thing too, it's like, I had a third thing, but I forgot it. So we'll just move on.
Fair.
That happens sometimes. Well, we are almost at half an hour, so we're gonna wrap up for today. So, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. How can people find you? Oh my gosh, thanks for taking the time. How can people find you? And I'm going to pop all the links you send me into the chat as well.
Yeah. So my website is worklikeagirl.co.co. I don't work exclusively with women. I work with a few good men, and I work with companies as well, doing leadership development for teams and helping them redefine roles and that type of work. But so worklikeagirl.co, or just reach out at Kristen@worklikeagirl.co. I provide 20-minute free consultations. And I always advise that if you are looking to work with a coach, make sure that you have good synergy with them. Hence why I do this, because we might get on the phone and just not be a good fit for each other, and that's okay. But we do that to make sure that I'm somebody who can help you with your issue, and and that you like working with me. You shouldn't work with someone you don't like.
Amen. I feel like that's a mic drop moment. Your gut knows. Don't work with someone you don't like. Take care of yourself. Bet on yourself. Mic drop. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and Kristen for being here with us. Just so you know, we have another SHIP LinkedIn Live scheduled for April, and that will be on the calendar soon. So we hope to see you at that one. If you have any follow-up questions, you can contact me and Kristen's info. If you want to set up a call with Kristen or find out more about her services, all of her information is in the chat. And with that, I wish everybody a happy Friday, and we'll see you next month. All right. Thanks, Kristen. Bye, everybody.
Hi.